Browns still reacting to the Browns' 37-20 win over the Jets on Thursday Night Football. That has locked up a playoff berth for Cleveland for the first time since 2020, second time, obviously, in 4 years, and just really the third time since the franchise returned in 1999. And given that it has been that long since we could last talk about a Browns team that has gone in the playoffs sort of within a 4-year window. It's been even longer than that because Paul Brown was the last coach to do it back in the 1950s. I saw that stat, 1951, 1953. It speaks to, Anthony, just the culture and the franchise that has been established here in Cleveland, which is interesting to say because we're so used to this Browns team not being in the situation. Like we're so used to a Browns team that can't get out of its own way and just organizational failures and all these different things. And suddenly we're talking about a team that through a year littered with injuries and all kinds of adversity, they're 11-5 in the playoffs. Just what does it say, you think, about the job that Kevin Stefanski's done this year to get this team to 11-5 and in the postseason?
Yeah, it's truly incredible. And we've beaten it down everywhere you look. People look at the injuries. Well, it's so hard to do what this team's done, and the reason that they've been able to do it, and I think it was really evident in the past 2 weeks, not tonight really, but the 2 games before that, where every time any player met with the media or spoken to a microphone, it was like Kevin Stefanski was talking. They kept talking about team. They kept talking about sacrificing for their brother. Everything that you hear Kevin Stefanski say, his team says. And when you see that and you hear those things, you're like, holy cow, this team is totally bought in. And that's what it is, man. It doesn't matter. This defense is a great example of it. How many times this year has this offense put them in a horrible position that they've dug their way out of, or they've backed another team up, or whatever the case is? They play such good team football, and it may be sloppy at times. They turn the ball. They love turning the football over. Right? That's become an issue that's like not even an issue anymore. It's like they have to do it to win. But it's just this team is so well connected, and it starts at the top. This head coach, Kevin Stefanski, and you were on it way, way back when they played Seattle. I think you wrote a column saying they need to extend this guy now. But he's just done such a good job, and it's been so fun to watch him and this group really just grind through this season and do something that really is unprecedented in the NFL and battle through all this adversity.
I don't know if I was that aggressive with it. I think it was a couple games later that I actually wrote that. But had they won the Seattle game, I think it would have been different. You're right. But no, it's hard to kind of put it into words because, like I said, we are so used to following and covering and talking about a team that has just there's just organizational failures across the board, and they usually slip up in these situations, right? But they got the job done on Thursday Night Football in front of, I guess, maybe not the entire world, but anybody who has Amazon Prime watching nationally in a primetime game where you're the featured team. And I'll put it to you like this. I think Kevin Stefanski, all due respect to guys like DeMeco Ryans, guys like Dan Campbell in Detroit, who's obviously done a phenomenal job, I think it's a disservice if Kevin Stefanski doesn't win Coach of the Year, frankly. Like, for him to go through everything he's gone through with his team this year, how many coaches could be on their 4th starting quarterback, a guy who, by the way, was on his couch for 11 weeks, comes in and is now taking this offense to a different level? Like, how many coaches can say that they would have that level of success with those circumstances? I don't think there's many. To me, he has to hands down be the Coach of the Year.
And I think too, even that's on the surface level, right? They're winning football games. There's one of 3 teams that are still able to. They shut the lights out on you. There we go. But they're one of 3 teams that's still able to get the 1 seed. And yes, that's great there. But when you talk about each individual guy, I think there's a story that came out. Nathan Zagura interviewed Duron Harmon, who just signed with the team last week. And he was like, my 2 final choices were the San Francisco 49ers and the Cleveland Browns. I talked to everybody around the league, and I looked at this team, and I looked at how much these guys love each other and how much these guys play for each other and care for each other, that I chose the Cleveland Browns. And that doesn't happen because of one guy like Myles Garrett or one guy like Nick Chubb. That happens at the top. When this team's bought in and they're winning and they're caring for each other, it points to one person, and that's your head coach. And this team isn't where it's at right now. if it wasn't for Kevin Stefanski. So just the hats off. And one of my favorite lines I saw tonight, some guy tweeted at us saying he's so far in first place for the coach of the year that he's going to get first and second. So I know seeing through orange and brown colored glasses tonight, but it goes without saying that it's my vote to be the coach of the year in 2023.
Yeah. I think it should be him. I also think we can't pay enough respect to Kevin Stefanski, and we can't wax poetic about him without also doing the same for Andrew Berry, who has had to navigate all these injuries, bring in new faces, bring in new names. I mean, just this past week, he's bringing in a kicker on the practice squad and Riley Patterson. He's bringing in a new punter because Corey Bajorquez gets hurt. Like, this guy has, and let's not forget, like, some of the other moves he made leading up to the season. I mean, moving on from Cade York, we know this organization did not want to admit that they missed on that pick. They wanted to be so right about Cade York, and organizations never want to be wrong about their draft picks. But to own that, go out, get Dustin Hopkins. He's been a key member of this team the entire season long. He has single-handedly won you several games this year. Like, from top to bottom, it's been pulling all the right strings, from Andrew Berry to Kevin Stefanski. I think both these guys should be in the running for their respective job title roles, the awards that are handed out for those, because it's been a magnificent job, and it truly does go back to just the culture that's being built here and established. I think the line that Luke put on the title screen was perfect. Building a dynasty in Cleveland. That's what it feels like is happening here with Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski at the helm.
They when Stefanski and Barry came in and got hired, they kept saying this, that they're aligned. They're aligned, they're aligned, they're aligned. They see the same things, and they stuck with it, right? It hasn't been pretty, but they've worked through it. They've worked through different things. They've brought in guys, they've gotten rid of guys, and they've made every move the right way. And when you do that, you end the year at 11. You're sitting at 11-5 with one game left to go, clinched up a playoff spot. It's a special year, and it's thanks to those two for building this team and keeping them going each and every week.
Yeah, no doubt about it. They certainly deserve tons of credit, and that is something that will be a storyline here moving forward as we, I guess, see where those award final votes kind of fall, but also as we follow this Browns team into the postseason as well. As Anthony said, the playoff berth has been locked up. The Browns are going to at least be the 5 seed. There is still a chance they could be the 1 seed, depending on how some things play out. They need the Ravens to lose a couple games here down the stretch. They need to win next week against the Bengals as well. So we'll see how all that plays out and comes to fruition. But in the meantime, certainly plenty of praise to Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry. We have plenty more coming your way as we continue to recap the Browns win over the Jets here on Thursday Night Football. Follow along on the Browns Digest YouTube page, and as always, at brownsdigest.com.